All right, what is up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Help Me Understand podcast. I'm your host, Coach J.K. McLeod, and I'm kicking off a very short episode here. This one's going to be 12 minutes or less, and the reason that I am so confident that it will be 12 minutes or less is because if it goes even 30 seconds past the 12-minute mark, it's going to then make me late for something else that I'm committed to, and I despise being late for things. It's not my favorite thing in the world. So with that, I want to share a quick thought that I've got with you that I think is perfect for the stereotypical Monday mindset going into for some folks, fresh week, especially with the lingering effects potentially of decisions that may not necessarily be within your normal pattern from a habits standpoint when it comes to nutrition, exercise, and all things in between. Those things kind of lingering through into this week. So before getting into today's very quick episode, I first, as always, want to say thank you for choosing to press play on the Help Me Understand podcast. I know that you have other podcasts that you could be listening to right now, and instead you chose to take at least a few minutes here and press play on Help Me Understand. So thank you for being here. All right, so real quick, let me go ahead and frame the episode for you here. What I want to talk about is this main idea for myself and for many, and I would say even most of the clients that I work with. The main idea here is that it's not a specific event that really throws you off course or off track. Even though I don't love the off track language for today, I'm just going to speak the way that most people speak. Okay. So the thing that throws you off course, it's not specifically the event from my point of view. It tends to be more that lingering effect, the things that happen the day or days, or for some folks, weeks afterwards. So let me give you a very familiar and real scenario. At the time of this recording and also release, it is Monday, September 8th. My 47th birthday was on Saturday. Was that a Saturday? Yeah, Saturday, August 30th. That also could have been, yeah, it was Saturday. Anyways, my birthday was on Saturday, August 30th. If you know me, you also know that my son's birthday is on the same exact day. So that particular event, we had a little family gathering on Friday night. Then my son had a sleepover on Saturday night. Then we've got Sunday, and then Monday was Labor Day. So I share those details to say, generally with birthdays, especially when you've got a kid's birthday and you're having a sleepover, there are food choices that are going to be more readily available than usual. And for my household, that means cookie cake. Cookie cake is abundant over the particular weekend, especially if we have like sleepovers, then that typically equals I'm stopping by Krispy Kreme to grab donuts for the boys when they wake up. That typically means that there's probably like Sour Patch Kids and all these other things. So there is more volume of those particular foods in close proximity than usual. And I can be straight up with you that the pattern that I got into was, all right, birthday, gonna have a little bit of cookie cake. Well, you typically have more that's left over. So then the next day, it's already there, might as well have another slice. And then that one day turns into 2 and 3 and 4. And what kind of entered my mind here is this lingering effect. And also, if you know me really well, you know that I DJ'd for about 5 years when I was in college and then out of college, also like post college dropout days. I DJ'd for about 5 years. So music is it's ingrained in my head. And I immediately, when I talk about the lingering pattern or the lingering effect, automatically I'm thinking of the Cranberry song, Do You Have to Let It Linger? Like it's just playing in my head. That'll probably end up being like an Instagram post too with that in the background. But anyways, here's that familiar scenario. You have the social event. Maybe for you, it's a vacation. For me, it was a birthday and some other events around that particular birthday where you eat or you drink differently. What happens then is that I already did it once mindset then starts to lead to repeated choices. So the event itself is the event. It's the birthday party. It is the social event, whatever the case may be. Maybe it's a vacation. You've been on vacation for 3 or 4 days. You return back to your natural habitat and you still have those lingering patterns. And that's what starts to build what's called the drift, where you slowly but surely like veer away from the lanes that you normally are in and you start to kind of drift a bit off your course. So, from my own personal story, that is what I noticed. I was still doing a lot of the things that I normally do, still eating fruit, still eating veggies, still going to my training sessions. I felt a little bit under the weather for about 4 or 5 days. So, that also was impacting certain things. It impacted my sleep quality just a bit. However, I will be very transparent and let you know that much like many of the folks that I work with, I let that event or a couple of days of events then linger longer than I really needed to or wanted to. So what I like to really try to reframe this fell off course or off track language is more things like course correction. We just bring it back to the middle of the road. We return to our rhythm, or maybe even something like resetting the compass. Or I think about the thermostat example, like the temperature is just a bit hotter or cooler than normal, then let's reset the thermostat and slowly bring it back. So I want to make this episode not just about bringing awareness to that lingering effect, like that's really the inspiration for it. However, what I also want to do, as always, as much as I can remember to, is give you some things that I'm putting in place or I have already put in place that also I believe can help you. So this is not intended to be I'm doing this, so if it works for me, it's going to work for you. It is to inspire potentially some ideas, actions, and strategies that you can use for yourself. So the first one is to make sure that you return to your anchor habits. So your anchor habits or your foundational habits, as many times I refer to them as, are these small habits that happen in conjunction with other events. So for example, when I'm done with my training session, return to grabbing a protein shake. When I wake up in the morning, I typically take a few minutes to think for about 3 minutes and just sit down and either type out or write out or just give some deep thought to a gratitude, something that I'm grateful for. That's something that helps me just center and build my core before going into the rest of the day. Taking the opportunity to, when I get home, I do my best not to immediately walk over to the fridge and see what's going on. Take a minute, take about 5 minutes to just kind of shift into a different space. So that's an anchor habit for me, really taking a few minutes just to pause. Doesn't have to be something that's involving a screen or something that's involving hitting the fridge and seeing what's going on. Just take 5 minutes to just kind of chill and figure out, okay, what's the next phase that I'm transitioning to here? Also, taking a walk or doing some sort of low intensity before going into the main part of my workout, that's also a piece there too. That's a foundational habit that I get back into. So there's a handful of different things. I gave you some examples for myself, but really one of the action steps is to return to at least one or more, I will say, of the foundational habits that you have. If drinking water before drinking coffee or drinking water before drinking soda is something that's a foundational habit for you, then returning to those particular things, because more likely than not, some of those things may have been missing over the past few days, especially if it was like a vacation or something like that, just returning to those things. Also, give yourself like the 24-hour rule. If you found that you decided to take one particular day or one particular meal or one particular event on a particular day and turn it into an entire day, then let that be that day. It gets that day and it gets that day alone. So if that was, Wednesday for you, then that was a Wednesday thing. Wednesday does not have to turn into all day Thursday, which doesn't have to turn into all day Friday. This isn't Lollapalooza where it's like a 3-day festival. It's a one show. The artist is doing one concert on Saturday afternoon, and then that's the concert. So Sunday, we go back to listening to them on Spotify like we were before. So just keep that in mind, regroup, and refocus and re-engage around, again, your foundational habits. That day is that day. It doesn't have to turn into 2 days. And then last but certainly not least is really focused on what's the next best decision that I can make as of right now. Far too often, I find that folks are trying to think 32 decisions ahead. So for example, I was talking to a client recently who we are working on just building a foundation of getting in 30 minutes of accumulative walking throughout the day, whether that is 3 walks of 10 minutes, 2 walks of 15, a 29-minute walk and a 1-minute walk. Doesn't matter. Just generally, let's accumulate 30 minutes of walking. And following up with them, one of the things that they mentioned is that if they didn't get the 30 minutes in the morning, they just looked at it as like, well, I don't have an opportunity to do it later, as opposed to, I just finished up a work call. I have 5 minutes. Let me go disconnect from the computer and go walk for 5 minutes. So that would have been the next best step for them based on their goals. Not saying it works for you, but that's the next best step for them based on their goals. They were thinking, well, that 5 minutes isn't really going to make that big of a difference. So I'm not going to do that because I don't know if I can do a full 30 today. And so my challenge to you is think about the next best decision. If someone had a goal of saving $100 and all they had right now to save was $5, we wouldn't tell them to go spend the $5. We'd tell them to still save the $5 because it will work towards the 100. So think about moving back into your normal lanes very much the same way. All right, got to go ahead and bring this to a close. So again, just think about when you have particular events, whether it be a day or a multitude of days, a work trip, a vacation, whatever it may be, things that are a bit out of the norm, those things don't have to then linger. Those events have opening dates and closing dates. That's what the difference between an event and something that is just part of your lifestyle or an ongoing thing. So there's the ongoing thing and then there's the event. Events have a grand opening and a grand closing. That is it. So keep that in mind. All right. With that, thank you again for listening to another episode of the Help Me Understand podcast. I appreciate you. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time.